You're listening to 17 Carat K-Pop. For more information about the variety of topics covered on the show, as well as my other podcast, How to Stan, visit 17caratkpop.weebly.com. And if you enjoy this episode, please consider becoming a monthly donor to support my work and allow it to continue to go on and be free for all to access for as low as 99 cents a month. Visit the Support the Show link on my site's homepage for more information. Hi everybody and welcome back to 17 Carat K-Pop. Today's special guest is Kat Moon. She writes for Time Magazine, various culture stories, some about K-pop, some not, but all great reporting, and she's written for other sites as well. Very excited to hear more about her work, so thank you for being on the show, Kat.
Thank you so much for having me.
Would you mind summarizing just your story? How did you get into the world of journalism, and how'd you end up, where you are today and writing about K-pop specifically?
Yeah, sure. Would say I entered the world of at least writing in college when I interned for the career site The Muse, and I was writing career advice articles for the site while I was in college, which was pretty interesting. And then there was a summer when I interned at the NBA, which I feel like is where I really got my experience with reporting, and that was also the summer of the 2016 Rio Olympics. I got to interview the USA women's basketball team before the Olympics, and I think from that summer I knew I wanted to do more in the field of telling people stories, and went to journalism school after undergrad and got more experience there. After journalism school, I have been in engagement roles both at The Intercept and then at Time, but at Time I've also been pitching and writing for the culture and entertainment verticals, and some of the stories have definitely focused on K-pop.
So did it you ended up just writing K-pop, or was it like an idea pitched to you?
So at the start, I was definitely me pitching different groups, besides BTS, which I know that when I joined Time in, I think, September of 2018, my colleague Reza Bruner was already covering BTS stories back then. And so I kind of try to pitch other groups and other angles to see how I could contribute.
So it sounds like it was kind of Time was already headed in that direction of reporting more on K-pop, and you were going to write more. It kind of sounds like it was just kind of an organic transition, because it seems like over the past few months at least, like you've been able to write more and more than ever about K-pop.
Yeah, I think at the start, pitching was a little difficult, but then definitely in the past 1.5, 2 years, I think I've built a really good relationship with my editor and flagged different types of K-pop stories on different groups to her. And I think we've just been collaborating a lot more.
And what's been the reception like for that? Have you noticed there's a big audience for it?
Yeah, definitely. I think the engagement on social media and the retweets and likes on Twitter, that is one thing. Would also say that traffic wise, I see that there is a huge audience for our K-pop stories. It's good to see.
Yeah. And you have interviewed some K-pop artists, not just written reviews for their work. Do you have any standout ones? Any interviews you've done with a K-pop star that really were just the most fun or interesting?
I think the last one that I did in person was with Monsta X. That was when their All About Love album came out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a fun interview talking about, different lyrics in the album, but also talking about how it's different singing in English versus in Korean. And I'm also a huge fan of just dance and choreography in general. So asking them how they interpreted, their songs through their choreography, that was all very interesting.
As you're deciding what to ask the artist you're interviewing, I know you mentioned like dance. Are there other angles you like to ask about? I'm just curious, how do you come up with the interview questions for them? What kind of things you want to know?
I mean, I would say first, usually in the pitching process with my editor, we decide on some type of an angle. And I think since Time does not regularly cover, standalone releases, usually in our conversations, we would try to touch on other topics, whether it is mental health or Asian and Asian American artists and the music industry, which is what I talked to Eric Nam a lot about in our Q&A a while ago. I definitely, will ask about the the release if the story is pegged to that, but also depending on what angle or if there's a specific topic I'm hoping to dive more into.
So it sounds kind of collaborative how your interview questions come together.
Yeah, I think usually when, let's say, my pitch gets a green light, by that point, there would be an angle in mind. And, I would talk to publicists and ask if we could explore the subject in our interview and hopefully go from there. Yeah. But I also would say definitely like researching what this group or soloist has said in other interviews. And, if there are comments they've made that are related, I try to use those as a jumping point too.
The first part of the question would be, how did you even, become a K-pop fan yourself? When was the start of that? When did you really become a fan of K-pop? And then the related question would be then, do you think your perspective then as a K-pop fan has really positively affected your writing about it? Like it's been able to help you write with more depth and intent and just passion about the industry. So I guess I'm wondering if those might be different stories, but the story of how you became a K-pop fan and then how being a K-pop fan helps your writing about it.
So I think for the first question, I grew up in Taiwan, and there were different K-pop music videos playing on TV. I remember seeing Super Junior or Wonder Girls Nobody, and I even actually did my student council speech in middle school, like in Taipei, partially with a nobody dance. So that was an interesting memory. But I would say I really became a fan actually during my year in journalism school. That was the second half of 2017 was when I came across BTS performing Mic Drop on the Ellen Show. And, it's the whole one video leads to many others. And I would say, while that video was the one that got me sucked in, I have also, like, started following many other groups. Yeah, I think I remember showing that BTS video to my data journalism classmates, watching things until 4 a.m. For a
Yeah.
while. That's how I became a fan initially. I think since I became a fan in journalism school, that gave me kind of an eye for watching for how K-pop was covered across publications, whether in print or online or in videos, seeing how there were a lot of common errors, whether with mixing up names or mixing up photos, let's say spelling mistakes with the
Hmm.
names. So I think I wasn't really considering doing entertainment reporting at the time, but I knew that, if I could, I would at least try to make things more accurate, which is
Right.
really a very low baseline. But I know that is important. And I think there can be a lot more thorough if it's with content and let's say platforms that we're already familiar with. And along with that, I think, being aware of certain biases related to K-pop and thinking about how my writing can hopefully, not enforce those stereotypes that has been part of just my reporting.
Yeah, I think that's extra important in Western publications, especially because all those little things like misspelling their name or using an image of a different member, things like that, like all those things add up, and it's really not a good picture.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, like accuracy is really should be like the baseline. So I
Yeah.
would hope that that is not, I guess, the only way that I try to, let's say, do justice for how I write about groups or soloists. But yeah, I think that is always a very important part of when I'm writing, just making sure I'm fact checking everything. And I mean, since my main job is actually being a social media editor, posting online, I'm also just very careful with any types of errors and trying to avoid them as much as possible. Yeah, but I think also just on the broader picture side, thinking about how to like humanize the different voices in my story, when it comes to reporting on groups or reporting on fandom, that is also very important. Yeah.
Are there certain questions you avoid asking them in interviews or questions that you want to make sure you always ask? Are there ways you try to distinguish your interviews and reporting from other K-pop writing? There are certain questions you think are just, asked too much in interviews or not enough. I guess I'm just more curious about those, how you come up with interview material and decide what you want to go with?
I would say it is always on the front of my mind, how a story that I write for Time can be, let's say, different from how the group is covered elsewhere. Sometimes if I don't think I can offer anything new, then I, like follow this comeback, but wait for a future release to pitch something, yeah, to my editor that I think could, let's say, have a more unique angle. I would say definitely when I do interview artists, making sure that I am asking about the meaning behind lyrics. That can always be reported on more, and especially if journalists are relying on, let's say, translations here. I think it is always important to, hear from the artists themselves, what messages they want to send. I think I am also just curious about how artists use their platforms to speak on different issues. If that's something they have been doing. Questions that I would avoid would be ones that frame them as exotic or as foreign, even if they are outside of the US. I think there is a way to ask questions so that they really can share about their music and their work, and it is less of a perspective of centering the US and then asking artists about their favorite foods in the US, or which city from their tour they've enjoyed the most, which are also fun to know. But I do think if a journalist, or if I have 30 minutes or less with an artist, I would want to try to ask more about their music and their connection to it.
That's how I like to think of it. Get the chance to ask them a question. I would personally prefer to ask them something really deep about, yeah, the meaning of their song as opposed to like, just trivia or something. Would you mind sharing a little bit about some of the articles you've written about K-pop and favorite maybe you've written, or just ones that you really want to recommend my listeners go check out?
I mean, I think I would start with my end of year roundup, which was titled The Songs and Albums That Defined K-Pop's Monumental Year in 2020. And that was a really special piece to work on. I think, because I could spotlight different groups that I have not written about in the past, and make sure that there's a range of girl groups, boy groups, but also newer groups, older groups, and groups as well as soloists. It was very fun activity to kind of flex my analysis muscles and look at if we're an album, then finding out how I can write about albums and its meanings and write commentary on songs. So I would start with that. And then I think actually one of my profiles I have written was on Monsta X and their All About Love album. And that definitely was an interview with some fun quotes.
That's a good sneak peek. Yeah, and I think about that last one. That's a good way to sum it up. Is what defined K-pop's monumental year? Because I do feel like 2020 was just so jam packed. Going off of that, are there certain groups or just new groups or new releases from 2021 already that you're really hoping to write about more this year, or just you have a feeling they'll be on your best of 2021 list?
Seeing Enhypen's new comeback, I feel like that was very strong. When I wrote about them for one of the groups to the newer groups to keep an eye on. I definitely enjoyed Shiny's comeback and Don't Call Me a ton, and was very hooked by Onu's voice in particular. I think another song that has really stood out to me is from Cherry Bullet, Love So Sweet. And it was just a song with a super addicting post chorus, and it's very upbeat.
Yeah, I love that new direction from them. I would definitely agree with that. Would N hyphen probably are there other big super rookie groups you're thinking are really meant to go big?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that you also talked about Purple Kiss, and I think their debut definitely stood out to me. The strong vocals were expected from a group from RBW, but I personally have been very impressed by their dance as well for Ponzonia, their title track. I'm actually currently learning the song, and it is not easy and requires a ton of core muscle strength. Definitely having a new respect for both their vocal as well as their performance and dance skills. Also really enjoyed Tribe's Doom Doom Talk. Is that the right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of their music as well.
Are there certain things that that make you a fan of certain K-pop acts? That's what makes them stand out to you, I guess. Is it often the dance that gets you to be a fan? Is it what tends to draw you in?
I really think it can be any range of factors. I think for Purple Kiss, definitely hearing that three of the members wrote the title track, and that was for a trainee evaluation, was very impressive. I think their skills have looked very well rounded in all the different areas. So that has appealed to me a lot. P1 Harmony that I wrote about in my new groups to watch in 2021. I think their movie release that came with their debut, that was what initially had piqued my interest. And then when I did look more into their music, also appreciating that. So I feel like it can be a range of different ways in.
Have you ever been to KCON?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I was just looking at my older stories, and actually for 2019's KCON, when I did a story following a diamond ticket fan, reporting on how different K-pop fans were using their, savings for this experience and
Oh,
kind of
yeah, that's right, yeah.
sacrifices. Yeah.
You also wrote a piece about kind of a look inside being a member of the BTS army and a fan translator online or otherwise just doing this online promo basically for BTS as a fan. Can you talk a little bit about that piece, the kind of things you learned about the army?
Yeah, definitely. So that piece, I talked to people who run translation accounts. I talked to individuals behind Pantang Trends on Twitter who organize a lot of the hashtag trending, and also One in an Army, kind of to show the different ways that fans mobilize online. Yeah, like in support of the group. And I think what was special about that was just hearing about how each of these fans started following the group and what motivates them to do what they're doing. For translations, it really is a huge time commitment. And I remember Wisha talking about how she sets her alarm clock for a certain time when it is close to comeback period, to make sure that she is keeping up with updates. Or for One in an Army, also a ton of organizing behind that. So I was trying to both give an overview of some of these things going on, but also share their voices about how they started becoming army in the first place. But definitely one takeaway was that I think because I went with an approach of highlighting some of the more individual stories, I also know that there is a much larger ecosystem on Twitter specifically, with all types of different accounts. And I think the Reuters graphics piece actually breaks it down pretty well, showing, I think it's called A Non-Exhaustive Guide to the BTS Army Twitter Ecosystems. It was definitely fascinating looking at that data journalism piece and seeing, besides translation accounts, hashtag trending and charity focused work, there is so much more too.
Does this, it seem to be that huge, as you described it, like an ecosystem? Does it seem to be that huge social media operation just for ARMY, or does it seem like K-pop overall has just a huge online presence that's really, or is the ARMY kind of its own thing with that?
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, definitely K-pop fandoms are huge across the board on Twitter. I would say for me personally, at least from the size and the organization, I have not seen something quite like Army.
Yeah. Whether about ARMY or other K-pop fans, what are some of your other takeaways from the KCON piece and the ARMY piece? Just your writing and interviews and stuff about the life of K-pop fans. I guess I'm wondering, are there certain common threads, no matter what K-pop group you like? What do all these K-pop fans seem to be connected by, if that makes sense?
I'm not too sure about there were similar reasons that draw them to the groups they follow, since I do think those are usually, so varied and specific to, I guess, individual experiences. And, a lot of the times it is, a specific song or lyrics that really speak to you in the moment that kind of drive fans to follow a group. Yeah, I think I would say a larger, like some thread through reporting on different fans though is seeing how, going back to talking about stereotypes, the stereotype of K-pop fans, say, being rabid screaming people, or that they are teenagers. And while teenagers do make up a significant part of K-pop fandoms. They are definitely not, all of it. And I think it has been a really great experience just to report on fans of different ages and different ethnicities and, around the world.
Yeah, K-pop fans are all so different. It's just, so many people like K-pop from all walks of life, and yet it's also so unifying in a weird way. Did you see that at KCON? Did it feel like, I mean, did you see a lot of just all kinds of people at KCON, and then, no matter where you're from, everyone was singing together in Korean?
Yeah, whether it's KCON or other K-pop concerts I go to, it is, let's say, mostly Asian fans, but I definitely don't think that is the case. There are so many fans of different racial and ethnic backgrounds who have started learning Korean because of K-pop, myself included. And so I definitely have felt, what you just described about everyone unified and singing in Korean by the end of the night.
And you have written a bit about K-dramas. What for newbies to the genre, what are some K-dramas that are good for beginners to try out who aren't used to the genre maybe but want to check it out?
Yeah, there's a reason why Crash Landing on You was so popular. I think end of 2019 and start of 2020, and I definitely think that is a great show to start with. Very strong lead characters, but also a great supporting cast. The premise is a little out there, but really, all the actual human connections within the story are very beautiful and moving to watch. Yeah, be prepared to shed many tears. And I would say another one, people who are, let's say, interested in mysteries or thrillers is Signal, which is a series from 2016, and it is about two police officers slash detectives who connect across different timelines and start to solve crimes and also prevent crimes because of the information they have in the two separate timelines. And it's very fascinating. Also has actually some cases based on real life crime incidents in Korea. So I highly recommend it.
That sounds interesting. I've never honestly been to in-person KCON. Is there
Oh,
really anything there to promote the shows, or is it more just the music?
there was one year when 17, they were, or some members in 17, they were reenacting different, I think it was three different K dramas.
Now that you mentioned that, I feel like there have been times that concerts and stuff where they've acted out or just at least referenced a K-drama and everyone in the crowd seemed to know what they were talking about. So I think there is that appeal. Are there other ways, either through your writing or just in general, ways that you kind of reframe K-pop fans? I mean, I know you already said that it's important to show it's not just these, just a bunch of screaming teenage girls as it's often portrayed.
Mhm.
I guess for readers who are not K-pop fans, I guess what is something they just really should know about or should, change how they think about, or as popular as it is to be a fan of K-pop now, it's still like weirdly sometimes stigmatizing to be a K-pop fan, or I'm just curious how you think about how to describe K-pop fans more accurately and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I do think, the screaming rabbit stereotype is kind of the most prominent one that I think shapes a lot of the other perceptions toward K-pop fans. And I think really the only way to counter that is to, have voices from fans who, like I mentioned earlier, are from different demographics and can share about both fandom experience, but also how their life experiences relate to their life as a fan. And I would also say, there is the stereotype female fans primarily following male groups. Yeah, so many instances when that is not the case, and
Mm-hmm.
so many multi fandom fans who are equally passionate about girl groups and boy groups, and yeah, so I think that's also another really important nuance.
Yeah, that is important. Two related questions. One is, do you remember the first K-pop show you ever went to? And then the second one is, do you have a favorite K-pop concert you've been to?
Just trying to figure out if I went to that 2018 KCON first or a BTS concert first. But yes, one of those two last year in January, going to Seventeen's concert. And was also, one of my last concerts before the pandemic, and being able to see so much of their performances live. And I think even before I really started following 17, I had watched Don't Want to Cry choreography video many, many times. And it definitely is probably my favorite choreography, or up there among one of my favorite choreography videos of all time. And being able to see that performance was very special. And I think another part of my K-pop journalism life has been meeting other K-pop journalists and becoming friends with them. So attending the 17 concert with those friends was meaningful.
That was my first or my last show before the pandemic too.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, so it's left a big impression. Yeah, and they are for sure really incredible with their choreography for sure. I think Don't Wanna Cry might have been one of the first big K-pop videos I saw. That was a big rabbit hole entry point for me. Yeah.
Wait, were they
Um
your first group?
it was actually I was into BTS first for like a whole year. I was just listening to BTS alongside just a bunch of other artists I was into. And then someday I just like decided to give other groups a try, and that's when I fell down the rabbit hole and that's when I was into 17 and a handful of other groups right after that. So can you talk a little bit more about what you mentioned before with it does seem like at K-pop concerts you go alone, but you make friends in line and you're already talking to people by the end of the night. And I mean, at least in my experience, it does feel like so easy to talk with other K-pop fans. There's just something really cool and special and unique about K-pop fans and K-pop concerts compared to other concert environments. Do you
Yeah.
feel the same way?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you can, right away find a common subject or at KCON. Who are you most excited to see today? And being able to talk about that while being in line, I would also say after I started doing more K-pop journalism, I think initially I was reaching out to people on Twitter to ask them to meet for coffee, more to, learn how they got started doing their work and trying to professionally connect. But then because a lot of us are following the same groups, also became very good friends, has been definitely one of my favorite parts of doing this work.
That's awesome. I just have a few more quick questions. One about the future, both like long term and short term. Are there any things you're working on, any writing you're working on now that you can give a little bit of a spoiler about? And if you can't, could you at least say the kind of K-pop writing you hope to do in the future?
I am thinking about mental health in the K-pop space a lot, and that definitely has been covered more in the past few years, which has been really exciting to see. And if I can contribute to that type of coverage in the future, that would be great. And also, I think something that is on my mind is different instances of cultural appropriation, and I would love to do a piece in the future, maybe speaking with fans of color.
What's to look forward to the most right now as a K-pop fan?
Yeah, I mean, definitely thinking about return of concerts that would, be the best. There have definitely been so many creative ways to do virtual concerts. I also feel like from a journalism perspective, a lot of stories about some virtual concerts or how they're being innovative have already been covered throughout the last year. So yeah, I guess I'm just really hoping for in-person concerts to return in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I feel like there is something special about K-pop shows that's just not the same online.
Yeah, watching something by myself is definitely very different, just without that atmosphere. I did watch one with a friend, so that was nice having, and someone else sit next to me, but
Yeah.
it's still very different. Yeah, you can still definitely do fan chants by yourself,
Yeah, for sure. Lastly, where would you like my listeners to go to just stay up to date on what you're writing? Where they go to just read more and find out more about your pieces?
On social media. I am at Cat X Moon, Cat with a K, both on Twitter and Instagram, where I post about my work. Google Cat Moon Time. My author page should come up, and that page on Time has all of my existing articles I've published.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll make sure to include a link to that profile too on my show's newsletter. So your work is just it's a really nice mix of like what you've been talking about where it's really deep important topics but also just some really fun stuff too. So it's a good mix. So just I really appreciate your work, so keep it up.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you so much, Hope.